Welcome, everyone, to the What Women Watch podcast, where sisters meet the screen, with hosts Deanne and Rochelle. Once again, this week, you will hear opinions you never asked for, but get to hear anyway. Each week, me and my sister get together to watch and discuss the highs and lows of the movie of the week. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at What Women Watch Podcast, and on Twitter at What Women Watch. You can always leave us reviews and comments, and we will address those as we can. We always love to hear from y'all. Thank you for joining us today for our 6th episode. It is now that exciting time where we jump into our next movie review. Take us away, Rochelle.
So, the movie we watched this week was Lilo and Stitch. The stars of that movie were Davy Chase, who voiced Lilo, Chris Sanders, who was the voice of Stitch, and Tia Carrera, who voiced Nani. The directors of Lilo and Stitch were Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois. Chris also directed The Croods, and Dean also directed How to Train Your Dragon. 2 very good movies. So, Lilo and Stitch is about 2 sisters who live in Hawaii and accidentally adopt an alien from the dog shelter. This causes much havoc and plays on the idea of what makes a family. It is time for our Big 5 breakdown. Takeaway number 1 was Lilo's routine that she likes to follow. And if that has anything to do with trauma.
You had made the comment of maybe she has this routine because she wants something to count on. Maybe it's something to do with her trauma from losing her parents.
Oh, yes. That was specifically about the Pudge routine that she has, where she feeds Pudge the fish a peanut butter sandwich every Thursday. Because Pudge controls the weather, is what she says.
Right, and her parents died in a car accident.
During a thunderstorm.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's kind of a superstition that she's created, or a routine that she's created based off of this trauma.
Yes, exactly. And I thought that was interesting. And she, throughout the movie, you can also see that she has things that she does consistently, because at one point, her and Nani just had their little argument, and then Nani comes to apologize, and Lilo hands her camera and says it's full again because she takes lots and lots of pictures of the tourists around her town.
Right. She also listens to Elvis a lot. Mm-hmm. She knows a lot of the Elvis songs. She has a lot of, she has Elvis pictures and the records and things like that. Going back to Pudge the Fish, I thought it was interesting because the teacher, her dance teacher, is wondering why she's late, I'm pretty sure. Or why she's wet.
Wet, yeah.
And she comes in and she's like, because I had to go to the store because all we had was tuna, and I'm not going to give Pudge tuna because that's an abomination.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was kind of interesting because as a teacher, you would think that he would have had a little bit more empathy towards her with, I don't know, they don't really say the timeline of when she lost her parents, but he kind of seems like a little impatient with her. At that point, later on, whenever they're sitting on the step, he is like a little bit more patient with her. But at that point, whenever he says, "Why are you wet?" and then she says the reason, and then he just seems like he doesn't really understand. Like, if you know that this child has this trauma that she's working through or whatever, just excuse her. She's wet, dry her off with a towel and move on with the dance lesson.
Yeah.
Like, also don't point it out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. As a teacher, I just felt like he should have handled that a little differently.
Well, yeah, and also kids have little things that they do, and even if you don't understand them, that doesn't make it, wrong for them to believe that kind of stuff, I just didn't understand, because right after he's like, "Why are you wet?" and she explains, Myrtle calls her weird, and they get in that little altercation.
Right.
And it looks like only Lilo gets in trouble for that.
Right.
And as a teacher, he should have also made sure that the kids weren't picking on her for stuff.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I just felt like there was a little bit of lack of sympathy.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, which we will talk about the Mean Girls because that's one of our topics later on. There was a little bit of lack of sympathy throughout the movie for both Lilo and Nani, and lack of sympathy and lack of support I found throughout the movie, and I thought that was kind of strange with them. Like I said, they never tell us what the timeline is, but it kind of seems new.
I think it was new because she's still going through, I don't know if they call it CPS.
DCFS.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the movie. They definitely don't say DCFS.
No, he says something about like he works for the FBI or
Yeah,
whatever.
social worker or something.
Social worker.
Anyway, the social workers are still there investigating the situation.
Right, so it has to be.
It has to be really recent because they would have, once they figured that out, that Nani was going to be her guardian, they would stop going. Like once that becomes legal, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So it had to have been in the past like year
within a year.
So
is what I was thinking.
It just kind of seemed like there was a lack of empathy, a lack of sympathy, a lack of support all around because nobody's like helping Nani.
No,
nobody's except for David. David's trying, but like nobody, like even the teacher. The teacher isn't. The teacher leaves Lilo on the step, and obviously they have to know that Lilo is causing trouble. Also, as a teacher, why are you leaving your student on the step? You're supposed to wait for a parent to get there, or her guardian. And so it was that was also kind of strange to me that he's just like, stay here.
Well, yeah,
wait for your guardian.
And like because Nani's like 19, I think, in this movie. None of the adults, because this is supposed to be like a close-knit community. This looks like a very small town. None of the grown-ups, like the older grown-ups, are like, Nani, here's a job. Like, yeah, we'll help you out. No. It's very hard for her to like get a job and like interview, and she has to like, really, really hardcore. And then none of them are sympathetic with the fact that Lilo is a little like extra care needing, and they all fire her because of it,
Right. Well, yeah, and they're like, yeah, we have a position, and then Lilo and Stitch do something, and then they're like, no.
Actually. Yeah, as soon as it becomes like inconvenient, and that just doesn't seem like it would be the kind of thing that would happen in a smaller town. Because I feel like
that's what I was talking about with the trauma comment.
Yes.
Like, both these women, well, Nani and Lilo look like they have gone through some trauma. And at the beginning of the scene, like, Lilo has these routines, but it kind of just looks like she's holding on to anything that's steady or anything that can't go away. I think during the movie she makes a comment and says, it's okay, you can leave. Everyone that I get close to leaves anyway, or something like that. And it just shows that, yeah, that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to, even whenever she says that prayer, she says, please send me the nicest angel you have. She just wants a friend. She wants someone nice. She wants someone to care for her. And I feel like if the community would have came together in a better way for these two girls, I feel like it would have been a lot better for them. Their circumstance wouldn't have been so bad because Lilo shouldn't have had to make up little routines to go feed a fish. And, all the little things that she had to do just to hold on to some kind of normality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Takeaway number 2. We wanted to talk specifically about the mean girls in this movie.
Yes. So, me with the mean girls, first of all, I don't have a big tolerance for people that bully each other or that are mean and
for no reason. Just
and,
picking on somebody because they're different.
Right. And that's just ridiculous. Also, at the point, like, the mean girls in this movie are picking on Lilo before she even gets Stitch. Like, I understand Stitch is an alien, so if they were like, oh, your dog's kind of weird, that's still rude. But they were picking on Lilo from the beginning. Are y'all picking on her because she lost her parents? That's rude. Also, where's your parent?
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, if I get home and I find out that someone's picking on my child because they're going through some kind of trauma that like is hurtful or whatever, I'm going to talk to a parent. And I understand Nani wouldn't exactly know how to do that because she's 19. This is new for her. But as a parent, I'm just saying, I'd be Mama Bear and excuse me, and I wouldn't be ugly, but I'd be like, do we have a problem?
No.
What is the problem here? Because this is nothing to make fun of my child for. Also, my child should feel safe in any shape or form. Lilo is just as, whatever. She can be in the dance class just as well as any of those other girls. She knew the dance just as well as them. She jumped in during the middle of it and could complete it. That's a talent. I didn't understand why they were picking on her from the get-go. What were they picking on her for? Like, the comment that they said, you're weird. Okay, because I went fed the fit. You don't go in the water? Y'all don't surf around here? I don't know. It was just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, they picked on her because of the Pudge the Fish thing. And then they also, later on, like not very far after that, they pick on her because they're all going to play with dolls. And if you watch, they have like what looks like Barbie dolls.
Right.
And then she's like, you don't have a doll. And Lilo pulls out one that she made. It kind of seems like maybe Lilo is poor and they're rich.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
That's what the vibe I kind of got was that she was like, you had to make your own doll, kind of. You know what I mean? Which is rude.
Yeah.
Not something you should pick on somebody for, but you know.
Yeah,
that was kind of what I felt like the vibe they were trying to portray, though.
Yeah, they were supposed to be mean.
Oh,
it wasn't supposed to be likable characters.
No.
The part where, that little girl, that little redheaded girl,
yes,
calls Lilo weird, and then Lilo punches and bites her. Okay, I'm not a violent person.
No.
Don't punch and bite people. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
But that teacher looks like he only, like, talks to Lilo about it. Like, hey, don't punch and bite people. Don't. Yes, have the talk with her. Tell Nani she needs to get in trouble for that. But we should have seen the other side of that, which is this other little girl getting in trouble for calling her weird.
Yes.
No, you're not going to call people weird in my class.
No, absolutely
that should be no, none of it. We don't do that here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm telling you, I just have no tolerance for that. I would, like I said, as a teacher, I feel like you should definitely be like, yes, you're getting in trouble and probably bigger trouble because you bit and you punched. That's, you no tolerance for that. Also, you're also getting in trouble because you called her weird. That's name calling. That's bullying.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, yeah, because at that point, Lilo's just defending herself. You know, and in the wrong way.
Right.
But she is like 6. You know? Like, we have to teach her that.
Right.
But that's a kid's defense mechanism is, well, I'm gonna fucking punch you.
Right.
And we have to teach them not to do that, but I think Myrtle is her name?
I think so.
Should not be name calling.
Yeah, no. And then also, I think there's a part where Lilo's putting spoons of them, like voodoo.
The voodoo spoons. I don't know if she was doing that. I don't know if she was doing that just to mess with Cobra Bubbles.
I don't know, but she said in that moment, she said, my friends need to be punished.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe that meant, like, why did I get in trouble?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's how I took that. As a 5 or 6 year old, however old she is, I don't think she's really got a mean bone in her body. Yes, she's going through a lot. She's traumatized, I will say. But I don't think Lilo actually has a mean bone in her body. She's pretty caring and, you know, everything. And so for her to do that, and what she said, she doesn't say, oh, they should, whatever. She says, my friends need to be punished. So in my head, I took that as, oh, no, she's saying, why was I the only one to get in trouble? Why don't they stop her from calling me weird? She's calling me names. You know what I mean? And my thing is if the teacher would have said, hey, you're not supposed to call, you know, people names. If we had more teachings like that, then maybe we would have less people fighting in school. Because if you trust your adult to handle the situation in an adult way, then the fight probably won't happen. I'm not saying no fights will happen.
No, yeah.
But in a situation where you have this kid that's constantly getting bullied, and the teacher's just like, oh, stop tattling. Honey, it's not tattling. Someone's bothering me.
Yeah.
You understand? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, we have systems in place in the grown-up world where if someone is doing something that you really do not want them to be doing to you, you can get like a restraining order. Right. You know, there are things in place in the adult world. Yeah, so it's bull
that kids just have to go through it, and then you tell your kid, well, tell the adult. And then the adult
does nothing.
Yeah, and then the adult's like, oh, well. And then the kid gets mad and, and like I said, there's a no tolerance for punching and biting, and no tolerance.
No tolerance.
But.
Yeah, but, you know.
Also, there should be, what I'm saying is it should be both. They both should have gotten in trouble in that situation. And I think that happens way too often in our
school,
in our society or school or anywhere, because tell your kid not to bully my kid. Yeah. You know? Yes, I'm going to fuss my kid for biting you and whatever, and yes, they deserve to be fussed at, but your child also needs to stop their behavior as well.
Yeah. I'm not a parent, and maybe it's a good thing because, I will teach my kid not to fight and kick and stuff the first couple of times. But if the adults in the class is not helping, no, my kid's not just going to be a punching bag for the other kid. Somebody's going to handle the situation.
Well, I've always kind of, if the teacher won't handle it by my child telling the teacher, what I usually do as a parent is I go to the teacher and I say, hey, this is a reoccurring problem, and my child is telling me that he's told you about it and you're not handling it. So what are we going to do as a team here?
Absolutely.
And then you kind of form that like look where you look at the teacher and you're like, yeah, I know about it. So what we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then usually the teacher is like, oh, well, yeah, I was about to. Yeah, you was about to, but now you're going to do it.
Absolutely.
You know, and teachers, they do have a bit of a like, oh, don't you think my job's hard enough? Yeah, but this is where my job's...
That's what I'm saying. Especially when I was in school, I remember teachers, it was like when I would tell on somebody for picking on me, I would be like, hey, they picking on me, and the teacher would be like, do you really want me to do something about it? And I'm like, yes, I really want you to do something. Why would I tell you if I didn't want you? And they're like, okay, well, they might get mad at you if I feel okay, make them not do anything to me.
Yeah, then if they get mad at me and hurt me, then send them
to
the office.
You know? So it always felt like it was an inconvenience. Like you said, tattling. They're like, oh, don't be a tattletale. Make them fucking stop being mean. Yeah. What's worse, me telling you that they're being mean or them being mean? I never got it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what it boils down to is teachers are so tired. Or whatever. And I get it.
I get that is a hard and stressful job, but
it is a hard and stressful job, but it's a job you also signed up for.
You signed up for it, and you're not just teaching them school stuff, you are teaching them life skills.
Yeah.
You're teaching them.
That would be like you showing up to the bank and be like, hey, I'm here to cash my check. And they're like, for real?
I just counted all that money.
Did you not see all the work I just did? You really want to come in here and make me cash your check?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes, that's your job. So, yes, whenever you're a teacher, it is your job to protect all students in your classroom. That is part of the job.
Yes.
So, and not that he was a bad teacher. It just was kind of a moment
we're just spiraling at this point.
Yeah. He wasn't that bad. It was just, it makes you think.
Yeah. Takeaway number 3 that we wanted to talk about was the scene where Lilo and Nani are having that big argument after Cobra leaves, and Lilo screams at Nani that if she didn't want her as a sister, she should have just traded her in and bought a rabbit instead. And we wanted to specifically talk about that, and then also just in general, like sisterhood and stuff like that, and what being a sister means.
Yeah, I like that scene, which is weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to say that because it's a really heartbreaking scene. It's a scene where my child, while he was watching it, actually turned to me and was like, what is going on? Like, it kind of broke his heart at the same time. But what's happening is Lilo basically feels like she isn't worth knowing. You know what I mean? I'm too much trouble. Just throw me away. Get a rabbit. It'll be a lot easier.
Yes.
And then Nani, in the heat of the moment, is like, yeah, you know what? I will get a rabbit.
They'd be quieter than you.
Yeah. And it's a scene that I like because it's a scene that felt real.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a moment that a lot of parents don't like to admit, but sometimes it's not your fault or whatever, but sometimes kids feel like there's too much pressure. I'm done. If you don't like me, just get rid of me. Like, I'm done. You know what I mean? And that's a very, very, very real feeling of a child that's going through something big.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not always the parent's fault because it's not Nani's fault that their parents died.
No.
You know what I mean? But it's a real feeling. I'm sure everybody's felt like that sometimes. Like, okay, then why do you try to take care of me? Just get rid of me.
Yeah. If I'm in so much trouble, I'm not worth it.
Yeah. So just go get a rabbit. And the reason I like this scene, though, is because first you have that, and it's heartbreaking because, oh my God, Nani, wait. But then Nani goes in the room, and she goes and she apologizes. And I like that, because if you can, as a parent, apologize, you're gold to me. So Nani goes in, and she apologizes, and she says sorry to Lilo, and Lilo's crying, and she says, I like you better as a sister than I do a mom.
Yeah.
And whenever that line was said, my son, he looked at me and he was like, that's not her mom? And I was like, well, I said, it's actually her sister. Her parents died and her sister has to take care of her now. And he had big feelings about it. You know, even as a young child, his heart broke for Lilo. And he was like, oh no, that's really sad. And like, we had to pause the movie. He buried his head in my chest. He didn't cry or anything, but he had a moment of like, whoa, that's big.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember when he did that, and just seeing his face realize that like both of their parents passed away, and that's why the big sister was taking care of her. And just he broke a little bit.
Yeah.
And it broke me a little bit to
Yeah.
watch.
And then, so she says, I like you better as a sister than a mom. And then Nani says, I like you better as a sister. As kind of to confirm, like, Lilo, I know this is hard for you. This is also hard for me. Because I'm sure with a car crash, it's so sudden.
Yes.
So I don't think at this point, Nani and Lilo have had the conversation of, I understand you're going through a lot. I'm going through a lot too. Because what you tend to forget is you feel so bad for Lilo. Nani also lost her parents.
That's what I was going to say. When I watched it as a kid, probably when it first came out, I felt really, really bad for Lilo because I was like, oh my gosh, she lost her parents. That's sad, and that's why she's so sad, and that's why it's heartbreaking. But then watching it now, I'm like, oh no, Nani also lost her parents, and now she has to take care of her 6-year-old kid sister. And I just think about how I was as your older sister, and I'm like, we're not that far away in age, but I was like, I would not have been that great at being responsible for both of us.
Well, and not only that, you feel what Lilo's saying, like, she knew what it was like to have a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in that moment, and this might be a little deep, but the movie is really deep, she lost her mom and her dad. But in a sense, she lost her sister as well.
Yeah, because her sister had to be her grown-up now.
Exactly. Her sister isn't just her sister anymore. Her sister's in charge of her. Her sister became like a mom to her.
Yeah, so her caretaker.
Exactly. So her sister, she lost her mom, her dad, and her sister.
Yeah.
And so Lilo has this big loss and so she's letting Nani know, like, I miss having my sister. And I think that's Nani's way of being like, I know, me too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because the same thing also happened to Nani, because Nani lost her parents, and now she is a caretaker to her younger sister. That changes the dynamic there. She can't just be like, oh, you're my kids, leave me alone, I want to be alone today. She has to put Lilo first.
Exactly. She also can't be like, get out of my room, or, Mom, go fix her breakfast, she's hungry, or, she can't do any of that. She's just like, oh no, this is all on me. And
all on you.
So
and then she has to also, like, pay for the house and bills.
I'm glad that that's the reason I really, really like that scene, because they didn't have to put that scene in there.
No.
But it showed these two sisters getting really, really frustrated at their situation. They weren't really frustrated at each other. They're frustrated at the situation that they're being handed.
Yeah.
And they're both like, I miss what we used to have. Yeah. I miss my sister. And she's like, I miss you as a sister too. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because they didn't have to put that in there. They didn't have to put in Nani going to apologize. They didn't have to put the scene in there at all. But it was so real. The whole movie is just so touching. And it's like, yes, if that were to happen to me, I would have been like that. I wouldn't have wanted you as a mom. I'd like you as a sister. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have wanted you to be in charge of me. I want to hang out with you. I want to be your sister.
Yeah,
you know
and I would not have done well with the responsibility.
And then Lilo also goes into asking, you like me better than a rabbit, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad too, because you realize that Lilo doesn't even understand the value of herself.
Yes,
you know what I mean? I remember a conversation I had with my child at one point where he was upset about something, and I told him, and I didn't even know it was going to be that big of a deal at the time, but I told him, I said, dude, you understand you're not trash, right? Like, I'm not just going to throw you away one day. And he literally bawled his eyes out at like 5 years old. And like, that was insane to me, because as a parent, I was just saying it like, oh, maybe he'll understand what I'm saying, because you try to let your kid, I love you, I love you, I love you. You try to tell them. But then that's all I said. I said, you realize you're not trash. I'm not going to just throw you away one day whenever you're not good, or whenever you're being bad, or whenever you're misbehaving. You are like treasure to me. You're my favorite person. And he literally broke. And that's what this scene with Lilo reminded me of, whenever she's like, you like me better than a rabbit, though. I think as parents, or even as siblings, we tend to lean too much on the fact of my sister or my parent loves me, or my child loves me, instead of really looking at your child, or looking at your sibling, or looking at whoever and telling them like, hey, do you remember I love you, right?
Yeah.
You do remember that, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe your actions aren't showing that, or maybe they're just not feeling that.
Well, yeah, you get, like, even if it's nothing bad where you're just not showing it, you get in a routine, especially when you live together and see each other every day, like, of just going through life, and you forget that we're grown-ups and we know all the time that we're loved and stuff, and except for the bad moments where, the bad thoughts
Right.
creep in. But as a kid, like, they don't have all of that history of like what love feels like and what love's supposed to be, and the fact that it's not gonna stop in it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so you have to remember that sometimes you have to just sit them down and be like, doesn't matter that you just got in trouble. Still love you. Still my favorite kid,
Exactly. And that's very important, because sometimes think about, and this isn't the same thing because it's not your parent, but think about whenever you're at work and your boss comes in and fusses at you. It kind of feels like, why do I even work here? Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm not good at my job, why do I work here? And it's not the same thing because it's not your parent or it's not someone that thoroughly loves you.
Yeah.
But it is kind of the same in the sense, because if you're always getting fussed by your parent and they're not also reminding you, like, hey, by the way, even though I fussed at you, I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it might feel like, oh, okay, well,
why do you even have me?
Right. Why do we do this?
Well, also, you gotta think about the fact that to the kid, they do adore you and they do love you. So if they're like, all I'm doing is causing you pain.
Yeah, that hurts them.
That hurts them, So you gotta remind them that that's not how parenting works. Our fourth takeaway was the relationship between Nani and David. We wanted to talk about how adorable that was, and how usually in movies where the guy just keeps showing up, that is not really portrayed great sometimes in movies, but in this movie, we thought it was portrayed very well, because David is never pushy or aggressive. He's only ever helpful. Yeah. He's only ever trying to help Nani, and he's just like, hey, if you want to go out this Saturday, that's cool. But if you don't, I'll stay in and watch movies with you and Lilo and eat popcorn. I don't care. I just want to be in your life.
Yeah. There was a couple of things that I really liked about Nani and David. And first of all, we've talked a lot about Nani and poor Nani and everything. But then whenever you go back to, like, the Nani and David of it all, I do wonder, like, were they friends, like, or close to dating before the parents died? I kind of wonder about that dynamic.
Yeah.
What did that look like before? Because if they were, just, and then this guy, I'm going to call him a man because he's probably like 19 something.
Yeah. They look about the same age.
He probably had to, like, pull back. Like, oh, she needs her time. You know what I mean? Because there's several times in the movie, and I'm going to be honest, usually whenever a guy is zero in a movie and he just, kind of like Rochelle said, and just keeps coming back, it kind of annoys me a little bit. Yes. I'm like, oh my God, leave her alone. She doesn't need you right now. She needs to figure out herself. But that's not how I felt with David. David was very, very like, oh, what's the problem here? And then she'd be like, oh, I just got fired and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he leaves, and then he comes back and he's like, hey, I have a job for you. Like, I have a person that'll offer you a job. And so he's very like, let me help you fix your life first. And I also, another thing that I really, really liked about David is that he's not just nice to Nani. Yeah. He's not just a friend to Nani. He also cares about Lilo. Yeah. And cares about putting a smile on Lilo's face. And he understands that whenever if he wants to be with Nani, he's gonna get Lilo too. Yes. In that deal. I like that a lot, because not just in movies, but in real life, I have heard people say, oh yeah, I'm going to be with her, but like, yeah, she has kids, but like, that's not my problem. Yes, it is.
It very much is.
Like, yes, if you are with somebody with a child, they are, I'm not going to say your problem, because children shouldn't be a problem. They are your responsibility as well. Yes. You're not just going to show up in this person's house and ignore their children.
No, and like, also, if you're trying to become family, because in my opinion, when you choose somebody to spend the rest of your life with or to spend time with, that's you making them your family. Their family comes too. Like, whatever, like their children, their whatever comes with them.
Well, yeah, even if it's a situation where like they live with their parent and that's what they expect to do for the rest of their life. If you get together with that person and you know this at the beginning of the relationship and they're upfront and honest with this, don't get together with them and then get mad whenever they don't want to move away from their parent. No, you now live with their parent. Like, that's just what happens. Any kind of family that they're wanting to bring into this, you just accept, because if you don't, go find someone else.
Yeah.
And I really like that about David, because he does make an effort to make Lilo laugh and bring happiness. And he is a very soft part of the movie, and I like that, because the movie is kind of dark. For a child's movie, it's very dark and sad. And
it's misleading that children's movies are all happy.
It is. It very much is, because I'm not gonna lie. That scene where Lilo and Nani are on the
porch,
and they're singing. That,
oh my god, that breaks me every time.
It breaks me. It absolutely makes me cry and just feel all the emotions, because you just feel the heartbreak. And you know how hard that is to do with, like, a voice actor?
Oh my gosh.
As a voice actor, they did amazing, because you feel every emotion going on. And so I really liked the character David, because I didn't feel like he was being stalkerish or whatever.
No.
I think he was just literally trying to help. Like, yes, I do want to be with you. I would like to go on a date with you. I'm not going to push it. But, like, you need help. Let me go help with that problem.
Well, yeah, especially watching it now, like, watching it, with the intention of talking about it, I paid attention. They are shown as being, like, it looks like they're best friends.
It looks like, that's why I said, I wonder if that's something that was before, because that would have been something he had to pull back.
Exactly, because they're at the same job, so I wonder if they got it at the same time, or if someone was like, hey, I got a job, and I know someone, you know what I mean? But then also, when the first night, I think, that Stitch is in the house, and he's stealing from the refrigerator, Nani catches him, and she's on the phone with David, talking about, so it shows that he's not just, a guy that hangs around. She called him, to talk about her day.
Exactly. So it seems like they're genuinely friends.
Yes, and he's just like, hey, just so you know, I'm here if you want to date.
Please don't friend zone me where you have time.
Yeah, but I think the reason, because she's never like, David, I'm not interested in you. No. Stop. She says, David, I have a lot on my plate right now. You don't want that. And he's just being like, Nani, I understand. I would be fine with that.
Exactly.
But you figure that out on your own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more like David's like, no, I'm ready. I'm a family man. Let's settle down.
Yeah.
And Nani's just not wanting to put that on him.
Yeah, that is an interesting take on that, because I didn't even think about that. That he's like, she does never say, like, no. I'm not interested. Nope. She never says, I just want to be friends. I don't have time for it. She's just like, yeah, I would love it. But I got a lot of stuff going on. Like, she shows interest. So I never even thought about it like that. I didn't notice that. But
that was why I was like, this is not the same situation as some movies. Because some movies, the girl looks at this man, sometimes punches him in the face, and is like, leave me alone. And the man is like, I can do better. I'm going to send you flowers to your work that you never told me you worked at, but I stalked you and I found it. And I'm like, that's scary. What are you doing?
Yeah.
No, David was never like that.
No.
It was
and
very
obviously
much,
they were very close.
Yes, it was very much, it looked like just they have been friends for forever. And he's like, hey, I know that you now have a lot of responsibility. I could help with that if you want, because I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
And Nani looks like she's in love with him too.
Absolutely.
She just, like I said, I don't think she wants him to have to settle down and have a kid already, because they are so young. But he's like, I don't give a shit, woman. Let me love you.
Yes.
And Lilo.
Yeah, exactly. And he does it.
Yeah.
He shows genuine love.
Yes.
Like the surfing scene, it's like the happiest scene in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It is so good.
Also, it seems like they have like a they can also laugh and make jokes, because whenever he catches the top of the building on fire, and he goes up to Nani and he's talking to her, she's like, you smell like, she says,
a lawnmower?
Like a lawnmower. And he's like, oh no, like, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like they can joke around, and it's kind of, I feel like she needs someone like that in her life at that point, because her life is so serious and so heavy at that moment. I feel like David is exactly what she needed, in that moment to, like, let go a little bit and
Yes.
still be herself.
Yeah.
I feel like David finds her.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, like we said earlier, you feel bad for Lilo, and I'm sure everybody does. Everybody's looking out for Lilo, and the social workers are coming and checking, make sure Lilo's okay. But nobody's really making sure Nani's okay, and I really like
except David.
Exactly,
yeah.
And I'm really glad that David was there to be like, yeah, I get it, but I'm here to help you.
Yeah,
and that's great because I think Nani needed that.
Absolutely. For takeaway number 5, we wanted to talk about how every family looks different, which is something that is really dear to our heart because our household is all of us. We all live together, so there's me and my wife and my sister and her husband and their child, so and then a slew of animals.
Yeah. Everybody kind of thinks it's
weird.
Yeah, nobody that looks at our family is like, yep, that's what a family looks like.
Yeah.
Because everybody comments and they're like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't live with my sister. Oh my God. You let the in-laws be together, and I'm like, they're not together.
Yeah. Yeah, they look at us and they're like, oh, so how long are y'all gonna live together? And I'm like, the plan is forever. And they're like, forever? Y'all don't want y'all's own place? And I'm like, this is our own place. We are one unit family. And they do not understand.
No, and it's not for everybody to understand. But yes, the point of every family looks different is near and dear to our heart because nobody truly understands our family the way that we do, which is okay.
Yeah, it's our family. So we really like when movies portray a household that is not the typical mom, dad, 2.5 kids, and a dog.
Right.
You know? We got all kinds of families in this world. Sometimes it's grandparents taking care of the kids. Sometimes it's aunts and uncles. Sometimes you got somebody who lives there and you find out after 20 years that was actually your mom's friend in high school that's been living with y'all. You know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your household looks like. That's your family.
Right. And I think, just like this movie shows, I think the family that becomes important to you whenever you're an adult is the family that you build.
Yes.
And I think that is something that showed in this movie is that they took these two sisters who adopt this alien. They also, by the end of the movie, have David.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also have Pleakley and Jumba that end up in the family.
Yes.
And I think it's really, really beautiful because these two sisters start off alone and by themselves. And if they would just stick to what people say, which is blood is thicker than water, which is how people try to portray, like, blood always wins type of thing. Like, only
the only family that matters is
your blood.
Is your blood, yeah.
And so, if they would have stuck to that, these two sisters would have had a hard time.
Yep.
To move forward. But Stitch really, really helps Lilo.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not blood. They're not even from the same planet.
Nope.
And David helps Nani. Mm-hmm. And they're not blood related. You know what I mean? So I really cling to that because it's just beautiful.
It is. Yeah. And I really, really like the fact that what becomes Uncle Jumba and Aunt Pleakley is shown to be a positive, like, thing in their life. It's so cute to see people building a family that looks a little different, but it works.
It works for them.
It works for them. And that's the important part, you know?
Right. And I also think something that was really beautiful is, and this is something that I thought was really cool, and maybe I just think too far into it, is Stitch is supposed to be bad. Yep. What Jumba says is he can't learn how to be good. He's unteachable. He can't learn how to be good, even though Stitch is really smart. So that doesn't really make sense. That doesn't really make sense because Stitch is really smart, but that's what Jumbo says. He cannot learn how to be good. But what I took the movie as, and maybe that's just me, is I felt like Lilo loved Stitch no matter what, and that's what made Stitch good, is he found somebody that was going to love him, and even though he had created so much chaos towards the end, Lilo looks at him and she says, "You can go. I understand, but I would rather you stay. I would rather you still be here." And I think that kind of to Stitch, because he can learn, he understands things. I think the Stitch that kind of clicked in his brain of like, she still wants me here. Like, I'm not good for this family. And I think that makes him want to be good for them. Of like, these are good people. I want to be good. They love me. I think he's figuring out, like they say, Ohana means family. And so I think he's figuring out, oh, family means no matter what, we stick together.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool and beautiful.
Yeah, because if you watch Stitch, he's like, he wants to leave at that point in the movie because he was reading The Ugly Duckling, and the duckling felt lost in the book. And he was like, I feel lost. So if I go stand out in the middle of the woods and say that I'm lost, my family will show up. And in the book, the family, the point of The Ugly Duckling, it looks like, from what I can remember, was reading it, is the family that shows up looks like him. Because the reason it's called The Ugly Duckling is because he doesn't look like the swans or something, you know?
Right.
He looks ugly, quote unquote. And so Stitch is like, oh, there's a family out there that looks like me, that is going to act like me, and I have to go find it. And then he goes out there and falls asleep, and Jumbo shows up, and Jumbo's like, oh, you don't have family. I made you in a lab. That means that you don't have any family because nobody is going to love you because, kind of thing. And then the end of the movie happens, and I think Stitch realizes that, oh, I already had a family. Lilo and Nani were my family.
Right.
All along.
My family doesn't have to look like me.
Exactly. And he realized that right at the end, and I think that's why the ending happens, and it's so beautiful. And
it is. Because at the end, at the beginning of the movie, Stitch is, he causes havoc and he does all these things. I also think that Lilo and Stitch, they find each other, and I think the reason that Lilo is so like, I want to make him be good, is because she's trying to find a way for people to like her too.
Exactly.
And I think in fixing Stitch, quote, whatever, she's trying to fix herself.
Yes.
What do people not like about Stitch? Oh, okay, well then maybe I don't act like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's trying to teach Stitch how to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's also trying to take notes for herself of like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to act.
I exactly think that was the point. And actually,
I think she relates to Stitch a lot.
Yes, and actually, we didn't watch the series before we made this episode, but I've seen the series before, the Lilo and Stitch series, and I think the figuring out that of I don't have to change myself for people to like me, I just need to find where I fit, is what they take into the series, because all of Stitch's cousins show up, and instead of trying to fix them, they just find where they fit in their little world, in society, and they find the job that best fits them instead of trying to make them conform to what people think they should act like. Right. So it's not that Stitch is necessarily bad. He just has skills that are not like quote unquote useful in the situations they were being in. You know what I mean? Exactly. So eventually they do find where he fits. They find that he's strong, so he can help rebuild their house, and they have that whole montage where they're fixing up the house, and he gets his little alien planet bedroom and stuff, and it's adorable.
I think that and I think a lot that happens is I think Lilo finds herself there too.
And she realizes
that was beautiful as well.
She also gets the friends that she wants in the family, like all in one. So she doesn't feel the need to get Myrtle to like her as much.
Right, because her and Stitch can hang out, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's fine with her.
Yep, exactly.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about getting someone who their whole thing is they don't want to understand you. Instead of trying to make them understand you or change yourself so that they understand you, maybe just go find someone weird that you can hang out with that matches your weird.
Right, exactly.
That's how I found my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the point of the show where we each ask our one question we thought of. And my question was, where is our Cobra Bubbles prequel? Because I really want to know how he convinced the alien race that showed up on Earth that mosquitoes were
going
endangered. Yeah. I want to know how that conversation went.
Yeah, where's his prequel? I want to know more about him.
Yeah, I want to know. You gotta know.
My question for this movie was, why don't we have love stories like this more often? I have a big problem with the way love stories are written because they write them really, really, really unhealthily. And
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of that because I think it makes people be like, oh, well, it's okay that my relationship's toxic because look, they still love each other. And I don't think that's a great example to put out in the world.
absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes I watch a romantic comedy and I'm like, these two people hate each other.
Exactly.
And then they're like, oh, we're in love at the end of the movie. And I'm like, since when?
Yeah,
Have we
where?
not been watching the same movie? Because y'all are not right for each other.
Exactly.
There's a difference between opposites attract and hating each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Hating everything about the other person.
Exactly.
You know?
So,
I think, like you said, it makes toxic relationships in real life look healthy to some people.
Right, because they're like, look, they still love each other. No, that's not love.
That's a fictional show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So for the question for our listeners, we had, what do you think makes a family? We would like y'all to comment on here or on any of our social medias of what y'all think makes a family. And now it's time for our sister scores. Deanne, do you want to go first?
I gave it 5.
5 hearts?
5 hearts.
Me too.
I think that anybody can watch this movie. It had action, and I know it's a kid's movie, and people are going to be like, what?
Yeah.
But I really do think that anybody could sit down and enjoy this movie.
Yep. That was what I was holding out for, was something that I felt like everybody could like. And this movie actually did hit it. Turning it on, I knew I loved the movie. But turning it on, I didn't know that it was going to get that. But at the end of the movie, I was like, no, this had aliens. This had, like, a little bit of violence, a little bit of action. It had love story. It had family values.
Yeah, if you're really like into horror and only horror.
Yeah, no, that would be the only.
But I'm still giving it 5 hearts.
Still giving it 5 hearts.
The voice actors, the animation of it, the music, everything about the movie
was amazing.
I think it's a must watch.
I think it's a must watch.
I think that if you have breath in your lungs, you should watch Lilo and Stitch.
Absolutely, and you got the 5 hearts also from me because you could watch it no matter what age. Like, you could watch it with your whole family, your kids.
I'm an adult and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Exactly, everybody can enjoy this movie. So, 5 hearts from me. Okay, Deanne, do you want to do this week's kid comments?
Yeah.
Our first one?
Yes. So, my pride and joy watched it with us, my kid, and so we thought it would be a cool idea to put his little comment in this week's episode. And so, of course, he said, Stitch is cool because he can talk and drive a spaceship. He needed everyone to know that. Whoever's listening, congratulations. Now you know. He also, like we talked about, he had big feelings whenever he found out Nani was Lilo's sister. It's not that he didn't like it, but he did say that he was like, that was kind of sad. And I was like, yeah, it is. He also wanted to rate it, like we rate it, and he says he gives it 500 hearts.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yes.
Beautiful. I said you could give it up to 5 hearts, and he said 500 hearts. Sure, okay.
That's what you said.
Yeah. And then I also asked him the question that we asked the audience, and he answered. So I said, what makes a family? And he said, love and respect.
Yep. Gotta love him. All right, Deanne, do you have any last remarks for this movie?
My last remark, just because I didn't have enough to talk about it in the episode, but I think it's enough to comment on, the part where they are going to take Stitch away in the spaceship, and he's like, can Stitch say goodbye?
That gets my heart every time.
It stabs me in the heart every time because she's like, sure. And then she's like, why? And he's like, because they're my family. And it's the first time that in the movie they admit that they're all family. Mm-hmm. And I have goosebumps right now because I like that scene so much. And it's beautiful, and I'm just in awe.
Yeah, that scene right there.
I like the writing.
Yeah, that scene right there, the councilwoman, I think, the lady that's in charge, she was very much trying to be really fair, and at the very beginning of the movie, she's like, is there any way he could be redeemed so we don't, because it's not his fault he was created. The law that Jumbo broke was he was experimenting on genetics.
Right.
And he made
the only reason
Stitch.
they were out to go get Stitch is because they said he couldn't learn how to be good.
He couldn't learn how to be good. He couldn't function in society. And that moment right there showed her he did it. Someone taught this creature, whatever, this alien, how to function, how to be good, how to be a member of society, you know?
Exactly. And Lilo's like, I paid $2 for him. Yeah. And then she, instead of being just like a jackass, she's like, you know what? I got a new punishment for him. He cannot come to our planet. He is now to stay on Earth.
Yeah, because Stitch's original punishment was to get banished.
Right.
But they never made it to wherever he was going.
Exactly. So his banishment to Earth.
To Earth, because Lilo...
So he gets to stay with his family.
So Lilo could take care of him. They could be family together.
So we didn't have that in one of the talking points, but I just thought that part of the movie is always just so good and beautiful.
Oh, yes. I love it. It's so cute.
So, thank you everyone who joined in and listened today. We would love to hear your thoughts on what we discussed. You can do that on any of our social platforms, which is on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at What Women Watch Podcast, and on Twitter at What Women Watch. Also, watch out for any announcements we make regarding what the next week's episode will be and other announcements. We have fun ideas and would love y'all to be a part of that. Also, we would love to hear ideas from you guys as well if y'all have any ideas for our podcast. Make sure to join us each week on Thursday on Spotify for the What Women Watch podcast. As always, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.